Well, look who decided to press play. Look who decided to join your girl, Francesca Fiorentini, for a bonus. No. For a special, not a bonus, a special, a normal Fantastic Friday. Thank you so much for being here. Thanks for pressing play and, lending your time. I want to talk about a number of things today. Does JD Vance have a couch kink? This is very important. Okay? Also, Kamala Harris and Gaza. Arguably as important, although not totally sure. No, of course. Even more important, Kamala Harris and her policies around Gaza. Will they be better? Will they be worse? This week was an interesting indicator. There were lots of things going on. Welcome, everybody, to the show. Obviously, happy to have you here. Thank you so much for, again, pressing play. Give this podcast 5 stars. And if you want to support the show, become a patron, patreon.com/bituationroom. And you will get access to, I think it's a perk, but on Wednesday, we watched Bibi Netanyahu's full address, and I gave my full, fiery, and definitely cuss-laden take on that. Wild claims. That being said, I think over, 120, between 120 and 130 Congress people boycotted the speech. That is huge. And something that I didn't know, but apparently when there aren't enough people to fill the seats in Congress for a joint address, they have seat fillers, just like literal central casting. I don't know where. Look, I hope it's someone from they have to be like staffers, like first year interns who are like, fine, do I get free lunch? Okay. But there was a reason that we were looking throughout the crowd, and like on the Republican side, I identified, I was like, oh, okay, there's Nancy Mace, there's that other ghoul, there's Marjorie Taylor Greene, it's just like and for Democrats, I couldn't make out, I was like, there was a lot of people I was like, I have no idea who that is, I've never seen them before in my life. And granted, I don't know all Democratic Congress people, but I obviously did see Kirsten Sinema and John Fetterman and Joe Manchin standing out just like they were like Halloween costumes of themselves, truly. They put the ghouls up front again for Netanyahu's address. The front row. Truly front row seats to a man who should be in jail right now for war crimes. And he might be. Again, no statute of limitations on those war crimes accusations. Very exciting. So who knows? He might fake his own death at some point. Who knows? We can only hope. But if you want to get access to that, patreon.com/bituationroom. Next Tuesday is going to be a great show. Obviously, I should make this a little more evergreen, but we're going to have the wonderful Senator Nina Turner is going to be with me finally. As well as Michael Harrison, I believe, of Novara Media. Hope I got his name right. Michael is going to be with me to talk about the UK elections and what and a little bit maybe about the fallout from the French elections. I know it's late. I know it's a little late, but a lot of shit was going on in American politics. So we're going to go back to that on Tuesday. But in the meantime, let's get into Vice President Harris, who met with Israeli Prime Minister Bibi Netanyahu, sadly, because we were hoping that maybe there wouldn't be a meeting, considering that she did not attend the speech. She didn't preside over the Senate for his speech, which was a good thing. But instead, she had a private meeting, and I just want to share the image coming out of that meeting. This is quite big. But the two of them shaking hands. And if you are listening, it's icy. It's quite icky, okay? They are, there's not a lot of love between these two, and you can see that Harris is trying to sort of act tough in a way, which is good, and she's pulling it off. This is like, they know they have to have the press photo. This is the press op.
Welcome, Mr. Prime Minister, and I look forward to our conversation. We have lots to talk about. Thank you.
Welcome, Prime Minister, and I know we have a lot to talk about, and thank you. And there's like this little moment where she's like looking away from him, like, yeah. Anyway, I know we have a lot to talk about, and we have to do this for the photo ops, and okay. And there's no loss of love here. There is, if there never necessarily was one, mind you. Kamala Harris had not been in the Senate for too long, and so look, I would say I would give this, on the scale of shall we stop a genocidal state, I'd give this a 7. In the realm of her actually meeting with him, this looks good. This looks good. There are things that don't look good this week, and we'll get to those. But first, after that meeting, she did speak out specifically about what's going on in Israel and Gaza. More explicitly, she names the American Israeli hostages that are still being held. And she names that she met with the family members. But then she goes into something that we have not heard before. And I know there are a lot of people who, maybe like me, maybe are within the sound of my voice, who no matter what, or at least for now, believe that Kamala Harris is a genocidal warmonger. Okay. We have not heard this language coming from the United States, coming from the State Department, coming from John Kirby, coming from Secretary of Defense Lloyd Austin. We have not, from Secretary of State Blinken, we have not heard this. Blinken had moments early on. He said the phrase, and I quote, this is not an issue you can solve with war. You cannot eradicate Hamas through war. He literally said that. Whether or not he's backed that statement up, obviously he has not, because they've greenlit war. But Blinken's had some moments of misgivings, but those were quickly stamped out by a very Zionist president, surrounded by a lot of people, who had, look at John Kirby. The guy is so disgusting. He's so hostile towards the idea that Palestinian human rights even matter. So this, I think, was a marked change, and we'll get into it and listen to it.
Are still being held in Gaza. I have met with the families of these American hostages multiple times now, and I've told them each time they are not alone, and I stand with them. And President Biden and I are working every day to bring them home.
I just want to mention that there were American Palestinians, there are American residents in Gaza who were killed or unable to leave. We don't really talk about them. It's fine. But yes, she plays into of course, prioritizing some lives over others, which is, based in an anti-Arab and Islamophobic tinge, nature, fundamental basics that undergird this entire issue. But here she diverts.
Also expressed with the Prime Minister my serious concern about the scale of human suffering in Gaza, including the death of far too many innocent civilians.
Okay, let's listen to that. I'm not going to misquote.
Including the death of far too many innocent civilians. Sir, my serious concern about the scale of human suffering in Gaza, including the death of far too many innocent civilians.
Even just there, I want you all to understand that is different. Again, just in words so far. But what has been the line from the Biden administration thus far? It's been every death is a tragedy. Every civilian death is a tragedy. But every civilian death is a tragedy. But and every death is a tragedy. But it's not about the scale of human suffering. The word suffer has not entered into the discourse of the Biden administration. And mind you, according to sources, I believe Politico this week was reporting that Kamala Harris is probably going to get rid of Antony Blinken, Secretary of State, and Secretary of Defense Austin. So that would be huge if she in fact does that, if she in fact wins the election in November. So we haven't heard the word suffering, and we haven't heard the death of innocent civilians. It's just, and every civilian death is a tragedy. But that's always a caveat before you're about to say the thing that Hamas can no longer exist.
And I made clear my serious concern about the dire humanitarian situation there, with over 2 million people facing high levels of food insecurity, and 500,000 people facing catastrophic levels of acute food insecurity.
Okay, little quibble. I mean, that's probably the World Food Organization or the World Health Organization saying that. But just call it famine. Like, they've also called it famine. Food insecurity is a really, really weird way to just say famine. Like, food insecurity sort of makes you feel like you're not living in a genocide zone. Like, we're talking about like low income folks who, sadly can't make ends meet. I mean, right? Like that's food insecurity is that. It's not like, oh, no, there's a deliberate famine.
What has happened in Gaza over the past 9 months is devastating. The images of dead children and desperate, hungry people fleeing for safety, sometimes displaced for the second, third, or fourth time. We cannot look away in the face of these tragedies. We cannot allow ourselves to become numb to the suffering, and I will not be silent.
Okay, so very important word. She did use the word tragedy. She didn't call it a crime, which is what it is. She didn't call it an offensive or an assault, or she didn't even really call it war. She still, again, Palestinians, their own suffering is often it just happens to them. No one does it to them. But still, we've not heard any of that. I will not stay silent about the scale of human suffering. Nope, haven't heard it in 9 months.
Thanks to the leadership of our President, Joe Biden, there is a deal on the table for a ceasefire and a hostage deal. And it is important that we recall what the deal involves. The first phase of the deal would bring about a full ceasefire, including a withdrawal of the Israeli military from population centers in Gaza. In the second phase, the Israeli military would withdraw from Gaza entirely, and it would lead to a permanent end to the hostilities. It is time for this war to end, and end in a way where Israel is secure, all the hostages are released, the suffering of Palestinians in Gaza ends, and the Palestinian people can exercise their right to freedom, dignity, and self-determination.
Okay, that's just completely unprecedented in 9 months of this. Like, self-determination? Like, that sounds, that's borderline, shit you can never say about Palestinians, right? It's like, oh, peace. Yeah, they deserve maybe a state. But like the idea of self-determination, the idea of freedom, that's not afforded to Palestinians in the current rubric of the Biden administration and, of course, of the Israeli administration now. Nobody cares about the freedom of Palestinians so long as Hamas doesn't exist, right? So that's markedly different and really, really critical that she outlined that. And also, I appreciate that she outlined the steps of a ceasefire, because I think we've just been hearing the word once finally the Biden administration got on board and Biden himself got on board to be for a ceasefire. And then the definitions kept on changing. So the fact that she clarified, it's not like 2 days of a cessation of hostilities. It's first withdraw from the city centers or populated areas, then withdraw from Gaza completely, and then a full ceasefire. Now, whether or not you think that's good enough or you like that plan, at least she explained it. And the other thing I don't think you're going to hear her say is that Hamas has been the reason there hasn't been a ceasefire.
There has been hopeful movement in the talks to secure an agreement on this deal. And as I just told Prime Minister Netanyahu, it is time to get this deal done. So to everyone who has been calling for a ceasefire, and to everyone who yearns for peace, I see you and I hear you. Let's get the deal done so we can get a ceasefire to end the war. Let's bring the hostages home, and let's provide much needed relief to the Palestinian people. And ultimately, I remain committed to a path forward that can lead to a two-state solution. And I know right now it is hard to conceive of that prospect, but a two-state solution is the only path that ensures Israel remains a secure Jewish and democratic state, and one that ensures Palestinians can finally realize the freedom, security, and prosperity that they rightly deserve.
Okay, I've never heard someone in American politics this high up the totem pole call for Palestinian security. Literally never. I don't even think Bernie Sanders has said that Palestinians deserve security. Whenever you hear about security, whenever you hear about the right to live free from, in safety, that's only an adjective that is applied to Israelis, never Palestinians, even though obviously they live under occupation, even though, the rate at which they are murdered or harassed or forcibly displaced. I mean, there's just no comparison because Palestinians don't occupy Tel Aviv, right? Or cities in Israel. So that is different. And then the other thing that she says, and this is really important, she says, to all of you who have been asking for a ceasefire, I see you and I hear you. Now, we're going to talk about whether or not she really does, but that is, make no mistake, a direct line to those people who have been taking the streets, who've been calling their congresspeople, who have been posting on social media, who've been trying to fight the bigotry, the false claims of anti-Semitism. That is directed at us. That's directed at the uncommitted voter. That is directed at that's directed at the 57, if not more, % of the Democratic base that says this is a genocide. So do not ever, we on the left, we love to imagine that no one will ever listen to us ever, and our voices never matter. Bullshit. It's been bullshit. And I understand that we have so many critiques of the political system that we are also trying to change. And fundamentally, can this two-party duopoly ever fully be democratic, ever fully represent all of our hopes and dreams? No. But that doesn't mean that you don't affect change. And that doesn't mean that this new candidate we've got here is not explicitly saying, I am affected. My policies, what I'm saying right now, will be affected by all of your hard work and the reality. Because it's not just about appeasing voters. This is about stopping a genocide. So that needs to make it into our collective consciousness. And I was pretty stunned to see this.
And I will close with this then. It is important for the American people to remember the war in Gaza is not a binary issue. However, too often the conversation is binary when the reality is anything but. So I ask my fellow Americans to help encourage efforts to acknowledge the complexity, the nuance, and the history of the region. Let us all condemn terrorism and violence. Let us all do what we can to prevent the suffering of innocent civilians, and let us condemn anti-Semitism, Islamophobia, and hate of any kind. And let us work to unite our country. I thank you.
So the fact that she said Islamophobia, I think, is huge. I don't love the soft Zionist language you're hearing there, the nuances of the region. You just don't understand. Well, international law understands, and international law has been understanding that international law just this week, the International Court of Justice said not a lot of nuance in the West Bank. Yeah, the occupation is illegal. So that's the thing that we need to keep pushing on. That's where we keep pushing. Is there an opening to push? Yes. And I want to stop down and take this moment to share some wisdom that I've, gleaned from my mentors and people who've been on this show, Max Albaum. But he always says the following, and I think it's really important for us to remember this. The elite class in this country, although they seem unified, are not. There are cracks and openings within the elites that can be exploited. And that is where pressure, movements, insurgent candidates, all kinds of campaigns, all kinds of local pressure. Again, so many city councils across this country have passed ceasefire resolutions, which is incredible. So many unions. We just saw 7 unions this week call for an arms embargo to Israel. That's where we have a role to play. So when you flatten this issue and you say, Kamala is Joe Biden is Kamala, Joe Biden is Mike Johnson, Joe Biden is Donald Trump, everyone is equal on this issue, you're actually being untrue. You are not being honest about this issue, and you're certainly not allowing for openings, for movements, and for pressure, and for your own voice to get in there and bring these elites, break them apart, right? And so, again, don't underestimate our power in this situation. I know it's easy, and I know we hate elites. We hate the entire elite democratic system, or so-called democratic system. We hate that money can buy our politicians. We hate that foreign lobbyist money, like AIPAC, can buy our politicians. We hate all of that, and we are working to change that. But let's not miss these opportunities. And I think there are a lot of people who are not, and then there are some people who I think, have their arms crossed and are saying, no, this is a grand flattening. They are all the same. And I'd beg to differ. There is a big difference between Donald Trump, obviously, we know this, getting a settlement named after him, from his son-in-law saying that he wants waterfront property in Gaza, from him receiving money from the widow of that disgusting old fat marionette Sheldon Adelson, biggest Zionist ever, who I actually saw come out of a meeting with who? Dianne Feinstein. I'm sure they're together somewhere in the afterlife. I won't say where. He was coming out of a meeting with her, I'm sure, promising her more money if she would only continue to greenlight Israeli settlements and bring no resolutions and vote against all kinds of resolutions ever condemning Israel or putting any kind of daylight. And the daylight is important. I want you guys to remember that as much, and I have a lot of thoughts on this that I will try to sum up in other ways, maybe on my socials or whatnot. But remember who put the most daylight between Netanyahu and Israel and the United States. It was Barack Obama. And I know that's hard to hear, especially for those folks who really thought Barack Obama would be a progressive, thought he would be hopey-changey, and they were disappointed to a large extent. They were disappointed at the mass deportations. Of course you would be. We all were. Disappointed at the bailout of banks. all of that. And there's a lot of there's actually a lot of interesting, and I'll get into it later, why I think this is a moment that necessitates a certain postmortem on the Obama legacy and the Obama era. And it's sad that we're having it now when it happens to be a Black woman running for president, and that's by no accident. We weren't really having the discussion when the fucking vice president of Barack Obama was in the White House. But now that a Black woman is running for president, suddenly we want to, like, label her with a bunch of things that she hasn't actually earned yet. Give her time to disappoint you. Give her time. And there is something disappointing. I want to point it out. There is something incredibly disappointing that did also happen this week that we need to name. And that is this statement that she issued about a protest that happened in DC. Now, the protest, and God, let's just start with the protest, because I was like, let's find images of this protest in DC. Obviously, DC Congress was hosting a war criminal, Bibi Netanyahu, right? A violent, like a right-wing extremist. And of course there were mass protests. And so here is an American flag being burned. Okay. Sorry. I mean, that sucks, I guess. If you believe burning a flag is as terrible as burning a refugee camp. And then here is, and I swear to God, I can't believe I'm even talking about this, but here is a statue that was spray painted with a lot of different slogans. And one of them, one just says, Hamas is coming. Now, I beg of us, just like, okay, two things I'm going to say here. One, a movement should not be reduced to one person tagging a statue with Hamas is coming. Just put that out there. All right. I've been to a lot of protests where people said some weird shit. People had some weird signs I didn't agree with. And that didn't mean that the Iraq war was justified. That didn't mean, that like the World Trade Organization was a good organization and the World Bank was a benevolent international actor that wasn't systematically indebting second, third world countries, the global South, and robbing them blind, right? Like there's nothing, no matter what some rando is going to spray paint, that doesn't undermine a movement to stop the death of human beings. That's number one. The second thing I think it's important to remember, and I don't know who spray painted that, and I don't know who was out at this, is that in these 9 months, we've seen in a lot of protests, instigators, provocateurs. I think you all know, given the legacy of this country, that COINTELPRO is still alive and well, that it was used before this most recent memory. I mean, I'm sure it was alive and well in the BLM movement, but the BLM movement was so massive, it's like, difficult to sort of undermine in those ways. And also there was a harder angle. Like you couldn't accuse them of being an anti-white racist movement. Otherwise you'd sound like a Nazi who was saying white lives matter. But we saw in the Occupy Wall Street movement, a very grassroots radical movement, which was incredible. There were undercovers all over that place. And then you've seen it in the Palestine Solidarity movement. It has been around for a very long time, and it's been alive and well in this movement, where you will have a provocateur with their face covered, starting some shit or saying some shit. In the case, I believe, I forgot if you guys remember which university it was, someone just going into a Palestine demonstration and yelling death to Jews. And so then the entire demonstration gets shut down and everyone gets accused of anti-Semitism because one idiot said just death to Jews, and that person turned out to be a provocateur. It's that woman saying she got hit in the face and assaulted when it was someone waved a flag in her face. So just so we're all clear, this is no grounds to say what Kamala Harris then said, which was incredibly fucking disappointing. And this is the shit where actually I think it matters the most. She says, yesterday at Union Station, we saw despicable acts of unpatriotic protesters and dangerous hate-fueled rhetoric. First of all, I'm sorry. Protests have the right to be unpatriotic. The civil rights movement was painted as unpatriotic. Every single movement in this country is painted as unpatriotic. When Jimi Hendrix played the national anthem at Woodstock, and it was the most chilling, beautiful performance ever, right-wingers in this country lost their mind because they thought it was desecrating the national anthem. Also, when Roseanne Barr sang the national anthem, let's be real. And then, lo and behold, she desecrates America in other ways. But, like, I understand you saw a flag being burned and you saw a dozen people around it filming. Just spare me the who gets to be patriotic, who can be patriotic, and sort of chastising people on that. She says, I condemn any individuals associating with the brutal terrorist organization Hamas, which is vowed to annihilate the state of Israel and kill Jews. Debatable. Pro-Hamas graffiti and rhetoric is abhorrent, and we must not tolerate it in our nation. I mean, literally, this is what she's talking about, that graffiti. She's talking about that graffiti. I condemn the burning of the American flag. That flag is a symbol of our highest ideals as a nation. Oh, what are those ideals? Those ideals, are they not free speech? Are they not free speech? I mean, honestly, isn't even the act of burning a flag, although you might not like it, actually protected by our Constitution? Isn't that part of freedom? Right? Oh, but when a fucking Supreme Court justice flies the upside down flag, that's A-okay. Like, come on, spare me. This is so sad. I support the right to peacefully protest, but let's be clear, anti-Semitism, hate, and violence of any kind have no place in our nation. And this is the work that I think specifically anti-Zionist, Jewish-led organizations have to get in here. Because there are too many, I'm talking obviously If Not Now, and Jewish Voice for Peace. This is where the lobbying effort around what is real anti-Semitism and what is not, I think, comes into play. So this is where we have our work cut out for her with Kamala Harris. But just because she issued that stupid ass statement, it's like, this is like now a fucking litmus test, right? She might as well be the president of a university. You know what I'm saying? And don't get it twisted. We know this about whenever people of color say anything that is at all in solidarity with Palestinian people or acknowledging of Palestinian suffering, humanitarian crisis, all the things that Kamala said, they get hounded 10 times more. Again, because apparently they're all Louis Farrakhan, they're all Nation of Islam, like they're all extremists because they're black. Specifically black Americans. And Kamala Harris also fits within that. I'm not saying that they're necessarily, watch that they come after her. Watch them come after her. Watch the, Friends of Israel, Democratic, whatever of Israel, all the different PACs and conglomerations will come out for her, especially because of the statement that we saw earlier. And look, this is where our work, we have to keep hounding this issue of free speech includes Palestine. Free speech includes Palestine. Free speech includes Palestine. And it's interesting because it's difficult to go down the free speech road and not make extremists and terrible bedfellows that you shouldn't be making, like Candace Owens, right? No. Elon can fuck all the way off. All these free speech people have shut the hell up, most of them, except the actual anti-Semites. Do you know what I'm saying? So, anyway. Marcos Granger, I wish Michael Brooks was alive to do a Nation of Islam Kamala Harris. Oh, that would have been great. I mean, your wish is my command. I could possibly try to conjure that up if I wouldn't get canceled first. Let's see. Robert says Trump could lose by 10 million votes and still become president with 5-4 vote. The harder they fail, the worse they will be. You're right. He could still obviously win the election 100%. Z Corp Alpha, Harris should not be allowed. We should have an open convention in Chicago. Nomination moves too fast. You're absolutely entitled to that opinion. And look, the delegates could change their mind. It happens on a local level. If you believe that, get in touch with your state delegates, obviously. No one has thrown their hat into the ring thus far. I think Gavin Newsom has endorsed Kamala Harris, but he's also doing a bunch of homeless encampment sweeps. So I'm like, maybe he's trying to also run. Fuck that guy. Z Corp says Bernie Sanders. My guy, if only. If only. I don't know what Jules is saying. Thank you for your super chat and your shade. Benjamin Morrill says his friend said, don't look a gift cop in the mouth. That shit killed Chica. I laughed my ass off. Never going to be able to see y'all on stage in real life, but I'll take any comedy you can drop. Paz. I'm sorry you can never come see me live, but look, I will try to keep posting as many clips as I can. Yeah, so I just want to, I need us to be able to hold two things at once and understand there are rifts in the elite consensus around supporting Israel. Right now, there are. And the question you have to ask yourself is, well, what do I prefer? Do I prefer to ignore those rifts and send them all to hell? Or do I prefer to actually exploit those rifts? And I told you this before. Kamala Harris wants to be popular. She doesn't want to be despised. She is susceptible to pressure. She sees the writing on the wall on all issues. Medicare for All, which she came out and endorsed and had a whole plan around. The Green New Deal, which she co-sponsored. And now, specifically around Israel. Now, I think it's important that she name the two-state solution as the only way forward. It could be also important to recognize the reality is that within Israel, the political establishment there is absolutely not discussing a two-state solution. They do not want a two-state solution, and Netanyahu has fought vigorously against one like he's fighting against a ceasefire. So the last thing I was going to say about her statement that I think was really important, I didn't mention, notice that she said, I've made it very clear to Benjamin Netanyahu that we need to get a ceasefire deal done. She put the ball in his court. Everyone, again, from John Kirby to Matt Miller to Joe Biden himself to Karine Jean-Pierre, they've all put the ball in Hamas's court. It's all, yeah. Every civilian death is a tragedy, but it's really Hamas's fault. Hamas's fault. Hamas kills them themselves. They love when they die. And you're just like, you could not be more crass and psychotic right now. Now, what I mean when I say pressure, and here's a perfect example of this pressure, it's campaigns like this. When it comes to the Veep stakes, no genocide, Josh. Oops. Here we are. So I don't know who started this, but I think it's great. So this is a campaign to make sure that Kamala Harris's VP pick will not be genocide. Will not be Josh Shapiro of Pennsylvania. It says, and there's a petition you guys can sign, nogenoциdejosh.com. Target Vice President Harris, DC Chair Jamie Harrison. Kamala Harris will assuredly be the new Democratic nominee, and now she needs to gain the trust of working class progressive and young voters. It is in Harris's and the Democrats' best interest to listen to their base and ensure that both their new VP pick and their platform support of the majority of Democrats and Americans who want social and economic justice for workers and an immediate ceasefire in Palestine. So they're sort of, it's not just the genocide. There's also more things that Josh Shapiro is eyebrow raising and concerning about. I don't know how to end that sentence. Josh Shapiro has compared peaceful protesters to KKK ralliers, has opposed the ceasefire in Palestine, has promoted private school vouchers, has covered up sexual harassment scandal in his own office, which I'm like, that should be the biggest one. I mean, not the biggest one, but politically speaking, I'm like, what are you doing? So, I really like the way this statement is worded. President Biden did the right thing by dropping out. Aside from his health concerns, his record on international and economic issues has left much to be desired. Vice President Harris will assuredly be the new nominee, and now she needs to gain the trust of working-class progressive and young voters. She can start by committing to supporting an immediate and permanent ceasefire in Gaza and an end to the illegal occupation in Palestine. Israel is conducting an ongoing genocide, and we must do everything in our power to stop it. Harris must commit to following American and international law by ending illegal weapons sales to Israel, as well as increasing the amount of foreign aid going into Gaza and the West Bank. Winning back the trust of disaffected voters doesn't end with replacing the top of the ticket. Selecting a vice presidential nominee with anti-Palestinian and pro-war views will depress turnout among Muslim, Arab American, and young voters, and greatly reduce the excitement that comes from a new nominee. Additionally, the new Democratic ticket must strongly support labor's right to organize, adequate funding and oversight of public schools, a functional, humane immigration system, and robust protections of queer and reproductive rights. A VP nominee who has failed to support the rights of workers and immigrants, diverted public education funds towards for-profit entities, or restrict access to reproductive or gender-affirming care would lose the support of millions of working-class voters, including those in swing states crucial to securing victory. To that end, Kamala Harris and her VP nominee must also affirm their support for President Biden's recently announced plans to offer relief for working-class Americans struggling with the high cost of education, housing, healthcare, and childcare. What's interesting is that they sort of are like, oh, Biden's policies have a lot to be desired, but then are sort of heralding a couple of them, or I guess his new plans for relief. I'm not sure which policy they're talking about. Maybe it's just, I mean, shit, my healthcare, I buy healthcare on the marketplace, and I have been very much, I mean, it's so expensive, but it's been reduced by $400, which, yes, I know what you're thinking. What is it if it was $400? It's a lot. But because of stimulus money from the Biden administration to people who buy healthcare on the marketplace, it's so expensive, and that's been really helpful. But it's small. It's a tiny thing. Let's have a fucking public option. The left must unite over the next 4 weeks to ensure that America does not fall down the path of fascism, authoritarianism, runaway corporatism. It is in Harris's and the Democrats' best interest to listen to their base and ensure that both our new VP pick and their platform support the majority of Democrats and Americans who want social and economic justice for workers and an immediate end to I'm imagining an immediate ceasefire in Gaza. Okay, so why not Josh Shapiro? Shapiro supported a GOP proposal to send $100 million of taxpayer dollars to private schools. He compared peaceful campus protesters to racist ralliers. He said, quote, "We have to query whether or not we would tolerate campus protests if these people were dressed up in KKK outfits or KKK regalia, making comments about people who are African American in our communities." You don't need to say that, Josh Shapiro. Like, gross. By the way, obviously, the reason I'm even saying this because Shapiro is in consideration. Let's see. Let's watch him say that, because that could be interesting. I'm all over the place today because my tabs are weird right now. I'm sorry. Oh, great. There's an ad. That's fine. You can fuck off forever. Buddy.
We're coming to air. I sat down with the governor of Pennsylvania, Josh Shapiro, to talk to him about the results of the primary last night in Pennsylvania, and also about this news about the anti-Israel protests escalating at universities throughout the country. Governor Shapiro, thanks so much for doing this.
Good to be with you.
So the president of Columbia University is getting a lot of criticism. Your fellow Democrat from Pennsylvania, John Fetterman, the senator, has called on her to do her job or resign. What's your take?
Well, I think we need to restore some order on campuses at Columbia and across this country. Certainly, students and others have a right to peacefully protest in adherence with university policy and the laws of the city and the states they're in. I think what's important is that we can't allow peaceful protest about a disagreement on policy happening in the Middle East to be an excuse for anti-Semitism or Islamophobia on these campuses. We can't allow it to be an excuse that puts certain students at risk to be able to go to classes safely or to be able to worship safely. And universities have a responsibility to ensure the safety and well-being of their students and to make sure that the rules of the university are being followed. What I see from afar at some universities, including Columbia, is a situation that is completely out of control. And it's incumbent upon the university leadership to get it under control.
Oh, they did. Don't worry. They sent in a hell of a lot of cops.
There are lines. Everybody, it's so subjective. Everybody has their own view. Somebody holds up a sign. I saw one at University of Texas earlier today that said something about Palestine, and it's a map of all of Israel, including the West Bank and Gaza, as if that is all Palestine.
Jake
Does that cross the
Tapper.
line? Some Israeli might say, you're saying that Israel shouldn't exist anymore. There are chants from the river to the sea that some people say are just an expression about freedom. And some people say, no, that's calling for the elimination of the Jewish people and the Jewish state. Where do you draw the line when it comes to what you consider to be out of control?
You know, Jake, there may be some subjectivity to the speech. I think it's clear when you're engaging in anti-Semitic rhetoric, Islamophobic rhetoric, there should be no place for that. But even before you get to what's on the sign or what is coming out in the speech, the act of gathering in the way that some of these
Okay, I
students
can't deal with this anymore. I'm assuming he did later say, made a ridiculous comparison, and like whether they were in, again, this is all window dressing. This is all the free speech exception around Palestine, which is, oh no, you can talk about this issue, but you just have to talk about it in this way, this way, this way, and this way. You can't gather in this way. You can't have this kind of sign. You can't have this kind of chant. Meanwhile, what's going on over there? Oh yeah, children are being shredded. Children are being exploded. Buildings are falling on top of babies, right? Hospitals are being raided by the military. Newborn babies in incubators are being left to die. But no. Let's police how this protest is happening. It's fucking wild. And that's what I mean when it comes to, Josh Shapiro and others who want to just have the mantle of anti-Semitism and like say that they can say whoever is anti-Semitic because they happen to be Jewish. But there are so many American Jews who disagree with what's happening right now. They're just not necessarily in places of power, right? And so that is, I think, where, again, the lobbying efforts, again, the centering of Jewish voices in addition to Palestinian American voices and Muslim and Arab American voices is really, really key. I'm glad he at least said Islamophobia, but like the other thing that he said was that he basically ordered state employees to avoid conduct or certain speech and conduct during the protests. He quietly revised his administration's code of conduct to bar state employees from engaging in, quote, scandalous or disgraceful behavior. This vaguely worded update, which went into effect last week without the public fanfare of some executive orders, is raising alarms among First Amendment advocates concern that it could be used to unconstitutionally curtail free speech. It's also heightened fears among pro-Palestinian and Muslim American groups that employees who express opinions that differ from Democratic governor's stance on the war could be unfairly punished. So it seems like that came, May. That was right in the middle of these campus protests. And that's explicitly around, posting something. And we know people have lost their jobs. They've lost so many opportunities. They've been, it's like if you posted something, you're on a blacklist, right? Let's pick up on the thread that I left behind, which is about Kamala and Netanyahu's meeting. So apparently, according to Netanyahu advisors, he was irked. He was irked by Harris's critical comments. Were they critical? I don't believe she even mentioned you, dog. She didn't even say Israel's doing anything. She just said there's a humanitarian crisis and there's suffering and she didn't say famine, but food insecurity. She said she won't remain silent about it. Is that what you're feeling so butthurt about? I feel like that's what it is. So this is according to Axios. Behind the scenes, 2 Israeli officials said Netanyahu's meeting with Biden was much more constructive than his meeting with Harris. Guys, this is a win. To say when you make Israeli officials pissed, that's a good thing. Again, back to Obama. Like, Obama needed to do so much more in Israel. But he did talk about settlements, even though they expanded under his watch. And he called Netanyahu an asshole or a pain in the ass? I mean, these are good things, right? They're good things, and again, they're openings. When Obama was doing that, there was not the kind of momentum that there is now. They stressed the meeting with the vice president wasn't tense or difficult, but the Israeli officials said Netanyahu and his team were caught off guard by Harris's on-camera statement and taken aback by its tone, which they said sounded much more critical than Biden's. Yeah, anything is more critical than Biden's. Harris's statement after the meeting was much more critical than what she told Netanyahu in the meeting, one Israeli official claimed. So I guess privately she was saying something different. Publicly she's telling us. So is it good? I don't know. Is there room? Yes. The Israeli official said Netanyahu, the proof is in the pudding. The proof is in the ceasefire. Can they get this ceasefire done? Can they do it? My guess is they'll get it done. Biden will get a ceasefire done just for the election, right before the election. And they'll only get to phase 1. This is my prediction. You guys, I don't want to be right on this, obviously. I'm going to say, putting it out there, there's no way in fucking shit. There's no way in hell, save a big action from the United States, that Israel's going to withdraw from Gaza. I don't see it happening. That's phase 2 of this plan, supposedly. But I'm going to say first phase they'll reach right around November, and then they won't actually get to phase 2. Sadly, without a lot of change. And that might be a new president, a new American president, who hopefully isn't named Donald Trump. The Israeli official said Netanyahu was upset that Harris spoke about the hostage and ceasefire deal as an end to the war, while Israel maintains its position that it will be able to resume the fighting after the deal is implemented. Oh, yeah. When I thought once we agree to the ceasefire, we can keep doing the fire. In what fucking world? And mind you, a ceasefire wasn't even part of Benjamin Netanyahu's spin on Wednesday. When he addressed Congress, he took great pains to, and if you become a patron, patreon.com/bitchuationroom, or a member on YouTube or a member on Twitch, you can watch it all back. He took pains to basically refute the idea that they were killing innocent civilians, which is like, so your lying eyes, don't believe your lying eyes. Believe Benjamin Netanyahu. So there's that. But then he didn't even waste any breath on a ceasefire because he doesn't believe in a ceasefire. He didn't even waste the breath to say that Hamas was the reason that there wasn't a ceasefire, which again, if we're putting up little cones in the line of progress on this issue, it would go Israel and Netanyahu being the worst, not even mentioning ceasefire and openly saying they're against a two-state solution. Joe Biden and his lackeys who pretend that they're on the precipice of a ceasefire, that Israel really wants it, and that Hamas is the one that has been holding up the process. That's all that's running cover for Israel. That's a cone over here. And then the cone over here might be Harris, which is, no. The impetus is on Israel. And there's massive human suffering. So now these cones are all scooted towards one side of the spectrum on this issue, but that's where they are. The funniest place is to be in the Biden administration's shoes, in the ones who are running cover for her, for it. And I have to refute the idea that Kamala Harris has been in the fucking meetings to talk about Israeli policy. I'll tell you right now, I don't think she has been. She has been, like a lot of vice presidents have been, sidelined on a lot of these things. I mean, and who knows? I'm curious to know we may never know how the Biden administration has treated Kamala Harris and her office. But there's a reason a lot of people are watching Veep again. And it's very funny because Veep, not only she's power hungry and hilarious and sort of awkward and weird, but she was continually sidelined. The president never calls her, never wants her opinion. She's not involved in any decision making. It's like, why don't you go solve the migrant crisis in Central America? Oh, what backing? None. You go do that thing. Like again, there was I believe there was a short leash. I believe, and I think that was actually to the Biden administration's discredit, because especially he never had any intention of stepping down. He never had any intention of being a one-term president. We saw it. He fought tooth and nail. This dude didn't want to go. And the reason we know he didn't want to go is because he didn't like help Kamala Harris or like allow her to do a thing that would actually be semi-successful. Stuck her with one of the hardest issues that the prongs of the migrant crisis, if you can even call it that, but the prongs of migration have everything to do with, international foreign policy and international relations, have everything to do with fixing the migration system, or the immigration system in this country, fixing the backlogs of in the courts, have everything to do with fixing the asylum, the way people get asylum. Obviously, you know what I'm saying? Like, it's huge. No, he couldn't even. The only thing that he stuck her with that was sort of good was basically like, hey, you're a woman. Can you go to an abortion clinic or whatever? And she did. And she did a great job. So all I'm saying is, like, I don't buy the idea that Kamala has been in the room making the decisions with Joe to continue selling Israel 500 to 2,000 pound bombs. I just don't buy that. Israeli official also said Netanyahu was unhappy with the fact that Harris criticized Israel publicly for the humanitarian crisis. Yeah, of course they did. Yes, but in her remarks, Harris didn't say that Israel should just end the war unconditionally. She added two conditions: security for Israel and the release of all hostages. Her comments about the humanitarian situation in Gaza and the civilian casualties were in line with previous remarks by her and other Biden administrations. That's not true. That's not true. No. I like, maybe on the like couching it in tragedy, but it was different. By the way, Ryan Cole just signed the NoGenocideJosh.com petition, which I think is great. So no on Josh Shapiro. Before we go, I do want to say that there was a cagey tweet that came out just today from Andy Bashir. Have I been have they announced? But there was a cagey tweet. Andy Bashir. What did I bookmark it? Hang on. He tweeted 4 hours ago. Speaking of Veep stakes, Bashir, governor of Kentucky, said, no matter what the future holds, Kentucky is my home. That will never change because I'm one proud Kentuckian. What does that mean? And who was saying it earlier? I forgot who was saying it, but like the idea that maybe picking someone from Kentucky, which is a like safe red state that you're not going to win, is maybe a good idea because it wouldn't take that governor. I think Jordan Ewell was saying it with me on the Damage Report the other day, the other show that I sometimes do, was saying that it wouldn't take him out, like that other governors in swing states might be more important to keep in. I don't know. I don't know if he's pro-union have a puppy on YouTube, but I do know that he's does he do like fireside chats? Apparently he does like a good. I thought he was the governor who did a lot of fireside chats. Yeah, he has been. It's sort of what propelled him, I think, to victory But he would do, like, I guess, socially distanced fireside chats. His videos had more than 3.4 million views, making him one of, he's the most second watched governor, only behind Cuomo, RIP. Anyways, Andy Bashir memes for social distancing teens. Like, yeah, he's got like a fan base. He's got a little fan base going on, which I think is interesting. And that's a very cagey tweet. Who knows what that means? Maybe it's going to be Andy Bashir. We'll find out, I'm assuming, soon enough. But finally, did JD Vance fuck a couch, people? This is what's important, and I want to end on it. Vox says no, and I'm like, well, can't a bitch get excited about something? This is just out of Big Mouth, the show. Okay. The rumors were easy to believe, especially when a potential Veep has weird ideas about sex. Okay, so to be clear, apparently, no, he did not say he had sex with a couch, but the rumor began as a joke on X when user Rick Rudescalves tweeted on July 15th, can't say for sure, but he might be the first VP pick to have admitted in a New York Times bestseller to fucking an inside-out latex glove shoved between two couch cushions. Vance Hillbilly Elegy, pages 179 to 181, which is very, very funny that there was like even the page number that this tweeter, who nobody can find, or nobody can find the original. Here, Snopes is digging into it. They have like a screenshot of it. I think it was since deleted. So here it is. Like, that's just a funny ass, like, that's just a good, I'm blank. I'm so old. That's just a good, like, shit post. There we go. Shit post fucking tweet right there. Apparently in that passage, on those pages, no, he doesn't talk about fucking a glove in between sofa cushions, although that'd be very funny, but it didn't stop people from memeing the shit out of it. Even though the rumor about Vance and couch cushions was false, some users still shared the claim as if it was true. Other people said, JD Vance talks about fucking an inside-out latex glove between two couch cushions. I'm so glad that this is coming from the guy who claims he's all about family values. Wait a minute. JD Vance fucked his couch and then wrote about it? Strictly Kamala, that's very funny. Strictly Christo says, did JD Vance fuck a couch? And why is this rumor so believable? Machine Pun Kelly says, people are acting like JD Vance is the only one who ever shoved a plastic glove between couch cushions, fucked it, and then wrote about the experience before. And then Sergeant Joker tweeting an edited cover of Hillbilly Elegy called Push and Cushion. It's so good. And there's a picture of a couch, a memoir of love that fit the creases. Imagine what poor judgment you have to A, fuck your mommy's couch, and B, brag about it, and C, believe it all makes you more relatable to the average American. JD Vance has all that poor judgment and more. Queenie Lovecraft says, whatever you do, don't tell JD Vance about this couch. And that is a particularly cunic couch. I'm just going to go with it. There's lots of folds. But again, if you thought the childless cat ladies was bad, I don't know. I think that the couch lobby might actually be, I mean, the couch constituents might be a bigger voting block. Amy A says, we cannot let JD Vance near the Oval Office. There are quite a lot of couches in that. Oh yeah, look at all those folds. That'd be bad. How many farts do you think are just sitting? You know, when I was a child / I am a child, I always thought, like, when you fart into a couch, is there like a layer of couch cushion that the fart just like hangs out at, you know? Like the Earth's core or the Earth's crust, you know how there's like different layers of the Earth's crust. So like there's got to be a fart layer in these disgusting brown Oval Office cushions. Like there's some Nixon farts in there for sure. Mostly George W. Bush farts. I mean, honestly, if we're going to be real, it's... and then if you're listening, this is just a series of JD Vance looking off in the distance. This is great. Oh, yes. Omega Shenron Dragons is going to have to cut that for YouTube. That's so true. How many seconds did I just do? Fuck. That's okay. We'll cut out the audio. But that was not Barry White. Just set to different couches. I mean, some couches are so nice, you kind of do want to fuck them, right? Like when you find like a really nice couch, like the couch that I have, I want a new couch, but the couch that I have is a couch I coveted for so long. I do feel like a couch is a little bit like a lover that you've always like you covet the one you guys know, right? When you finally get the couch that you wanted, they're so expensive and they feel so out of reach, and you don't want to settle for a really cheap one because it's not going to last you. It's like sexy and comfortable. But when you finally get that one, you're like, you do, you have to clean up a little bit. You know what I'm saying? Thank you so much, Wesley Gish, for the super sticker. Did I earn it? You goddamn right I did. That's the most important thing. And yes, this week, I'll end with this. The right is fucking struggling, y'all. This whole like crazy cat lady thing, which I don't understand. Like, I think that those of us who pay attention to what right wingers say are so much more exposed to their misogyny and their hatred. And when that clip of JD Vance talking to Tucker Carlson about childless cat ladies came out, we talked about it on Tuesday. Like I talked about it, we spoke about it, but I don't think that broke through because he wasn't a vice presidential nominee. And so what would otherwise live in, again, it's like in the backwaters of, the internet, but not even because it was fucking primetime television. It was Tucker Carlson. I'm so used to like people shitting on crazy cat ladies. Like that's like such a stupid old trope. Because obviously there's crazy dog ladies and crazy gerbil ladies and crazy lizard ladies. So like that's like kind of other species lady eraser. In addition to crazy baby ladies like me. Like it's wild how much it's broken through. And just anecdotally, people in my life who don't reliably vote Democrat at all have seen that clip. It has broken through and it is deeply offensive. I know people want to make a big deal about Jennifer Aniston, and I don't want to jump on that, but I do think it's something that someone who's sort of like resoundingly apolitical has spoken out about that. They are so fucked right now. And if it didn't, like, the best part to me was that Kamala Harris's husband's first wife, the mother of his kids, the actual mother, came out with a statement defending Kamala Harris as an incredible co-parent. She says these are baseless attacks for over 10 years. Since Cole and Ella were teenagers, Kamala has been a co-parent with Doug and I. That's Kirsten Emhoff said in a statement. She is loving, nurturing, fiercely protective, and always present. I love our blended family, and I'm grateful to have her in it. So, damn. Like, for a party of family values, imagine you can't even get Donald Trump to give his own daughter, Tiffany, a kiss on the cheek in front of the world. You can't even get him to say, I love you, kids. You can't even get Melania to show up in a fucking courtroom to defend her husband, because of course, why would she? But like and then you have on the other side like a stepmom basically being praised, but like a happy, healthy, extended family, a situation that exists in my family, probably in your family, in so many families. I mean, this is the idea that like it's the year 2024. Divorce rates are high because of course they are. Because they always are. Because who fucking cares if they're high? But mixed families, families with stepkids, families with half brothers, half sisters, everyone's got that family. So like, they are so lost. I mean, I thought they were lost when they were like, sex is bad, only sex for procreation. But like, that's for younger voters and, who are like weird incels and maybe don't reliably vote anyway. But like, this directly taps like some of their older voting base that they're trying to win over. Like, such a bad look. And I'm so amazed at how this has ricocheted through the media sphere and how much it's broken through to people who maybe weren't paying attention. But oh yeah, the misogyny has been openly celebrated because of course it has. And a final thought, what's interesting about it being JD Vance is that if it were Donald Trump, I don't think people would care, because the blessing of having Donald Trump as your as the cult leader is that he gets to do whatever he wants. He is absolved from it because he's the cult leader. But all the other minions, the people who, are supporting him, again, the Project 2025, which fuck, man, they're trying to distance themselves from that. Wild. They're on their back foot, y'all. I'm telling you, they're on their back foot. So what I'm saying is, again, the same kinds of shit that Donald Trump gets away with on a Tuesday, JD Vance cannot get away with, because suddenly it's not just the cult. It's not just the one guy. Okay, well, let the one guy say the thing so that he can get into office and make America great again. That's the sacrifice. It's exposing the fact that the entire movement and the entire band of sycophants and the entire right-wing political sphere is also suckling from that same hateful teat. Like, they are all drinking from that same well. They are all dabbling in that shit, right? And when it is exposed to the average American, that's not becoming, right? That's not becoming of an entire political party to be openly saying things like that. So, I love this week. It's a good week in American politics if you, have any hope for America left. Anyway, that does it for the Fantastic Friday of the Bituation Room. Again, guys, support the show. Go to patreon.com/Bituation Room. There's so many good perks, discounts on merch, 20% off, all your merchandise, discounts on the American Prospect. Send me ideas for guests, ideas for segments, access to AMAs, which let's schedule one for next week, shall we? And next week is going to be so good. So good. But also, it's the best way to support the show, which is literally a tiny labor of love. God, we started in earnest, in 2020? And it's been 4 years, a little more than 4 years. I think the YouTube channel, and we had like our anniversary recently. And I'm so proud of us. I'm so proud of what we've built together. Thank you for being here. And thank you for being a member of the Frantifa, if you are, or a member on YouTube or Twitch. Thank you so much. Rory Cripps, who just became a member. And William McGregor says JD Vance denied a couch reupholstering bodily autonomy. JD Vance denied a couch reupholstering bodily autonomy. There's something there. I like it. Something to do with a couch transitioning into a pullout, right? Like that JD Vance is against transitioning couches. I don't know. We'll workshop it later. I'll see you guys on Tuesday. Thank you so much. You're the best. Send a super chat also, or TBR-live on Venmo, TBR live on Cash App. If you want to send a tip, love you. Fight me. Bye.